registered nurse. I'm going to be talking about diabetes. Are you in the right place?
Yes, I'm here for the diabetes information session.
So first we're going to talk about how the body normally functions when you actually have a snack or a meal that has high concentration of carbohydrates in it. And then I'll get into talk about what happens when you have diabetes type 1.
When we consume carbohydrates, they get digested in the stomach, and when passed into the small intestines, these carbohydrates are converted to glucose and then released into the bloodstream. So when the pancreas detects that there's a high level of glucose in the body, the islet cells, specifically your beta cells, release a hormone called insulin that allow for the cell to open up a channel for glucose to enter the cell, for the cells to use that glucose for energy.
So now that we've talked about what happens in the normally in the body when someone doesn't have diabetes, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about what happens when someone does have type 1 diabetes. Once the food is digested and the carbohydrate is turned into glucose, the glucose enters the bloodstream. So here we have a bloodstream, and these blue dots represent the glucose. So as you can see, there's a high concentration of glucose in the blood, and it needs the help of insulin in order to enter the cell. Alright, so this is the cell membrane. These are the insulin receptors. This is the protein that's contained within the cell, and then this is the free-flowing glucose. So as you can see, the protein is actually within the cell. It's not out because there's no insulin present. So now we have a cell membrane. We have the glucose and the insulin now in the bloodstream, which would be the result of a diabetes type 1 patient taking insulin, and this obviously happens in a normal functioning human body. So the insulin floats through the bloodstream, it binds to this insulin receptor in the cell membrane, it opens up the protein channel and allows for the glucose to enter the cell to provide us with energy.
Miss Kaylee, my daughter can't stop eating, is always thirsty, and is forever going to the bathroom. Are these symptoms related to her diabetes?
So in regards to her excessive hunger, which is called polyphagia, what's happening is that when there's a lot of sugar in the bloodstream, the glucose, it actually can't get into the cells and we can't use it for energy. So the body resorts to the fat stores, which of course signal to the body that we're using up our storage and we need to be eating more. So that explains her excessive hunger. I want to talk about the next symptom, which is frequent urination. This is also called polyuria. So what's happening is when there's a high content of glucose in the bloodstream, there actually is a high content of glucose in the kidneys as well, specifically the kidney filtrate. And when there's too much glucose, it can't be reabsorbed into the kidneys, so the body just gets rid of it and the glucose is excreted through the urinary tract and out of the body. So the last symptom that I want to talk about is excessive thirst, which is called polydipsia. So what's happening is that when the body uses the fat stores, there's a high fat content in the bloodstream. These are called fatty acid metabolites. The actual name for them is ketones. So when there's a high concentration of ketones in the bloodstream, it actually is a huge electrolyte imbalance, because what's happening is the body's trying to get rid of the ketones because there's too much of them, and it actually takes the sodium and potassium out of the cell, which causes the cell to be dehydrated. So this signals to the body that it's dehydrated and that we need to be drinking more, which is an explanation for the excessive thirst. Does anyone want to summarize what we learned today in the diabetes information session?
I can. From my understanding, type 1 diabetes is caused by an autoimmune disorder that attacks the beta cells by destroying them and causing them to produce no insulin. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I also believe that the person's glucose levels then will continue to rise, leading to hyperglycemia. Symptoms associated with this are polyuria, polyphagia, and polydipsia. I also believe that there are proteins involved, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that these proteins are embedded within the cell itself, and when insulin binds to the receptor site on the outside of the cell membrane, this protein embeds itself in the cell membrane and opens up a channel to allow that free-floating glucose into the cell, right?
Yeah.
Good. And when that channel opens and allows that free-floating glucose from the body into the cells, it helps bring the body back to homeostasis.
You've got it. All right, so I would just like to thank everyone for coming to the Diabetes Information